Hey everybody, Alvinator here from Mulligans and Hackers, and on this episode, we've got Dane from Matchstick Golf. How you doing, pal?
Good, man. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Hey, I appreciate you coming on and giving us a little bit of your time. So we were just talking off camera about the career. So how does one get into the realm of ball, really unique ball markers and golf accessories uh, as as something that you develop and you get into? Like where does those type of ideas come from?
Yeah, it's very specific, isn't it? That's what I get from some people. But then again, we're going for a certain demographic who really gets it and is really excited about it. So it makes it easy. That's kind of who we're aiming at. So a little bit of background about me. So I was actually a sports writer for 9 years. And I my last job was I worked for NBC Sports National here in the US. I covered the NBA. Worked for Sporting News before that, and SB Nation. I worked for the Portland Timbers, a soccer team here in Portland. So kind of that's what happens when you're a sports writer. But decided that wasn't really going to work out for me, mostly because in sports writing you end up having to switch cities a lot, which I did. I lived in Charlotte, I lived in Seattle, but I really wanted to be here. I'm from about 45 minutes south of Portland, so I wanted to live here. Um, so that's kind of a hard thing. So I switched. I got a second degree. I became an accountant for a few years, and then Matchstick just sort of like came up because it's a funny story. It's a classic like how hard could it be story where I had a golf ball marker and it was a shuttlecock, right? So another word for that is birdie, right, from badminton. It was made by Jones, which is a bag company. Most listeners probably know, but that's actually about 20 minutes south of me here in Portland. It's in a town called Tualatin. And so I really loved it, but they didn't have it for sale on the website anymore. When I lost it, I was on my home course. It's on 17 in Glendoveer West, and 17 and 18 have what feels like a 30-degree grade on it. So of course I three-putted because it was a Sunday. It was the hardest pins, and I was all pissed off. So I shove it in my pocket. It doesn't actually go in there. It falls. I go back. I look for it. I call the pro shop like 2 days in a row. They're like, "Hey man, it's a golf ball marker. Let it go. Like, what are you still worried about?" I'm like, "But I really like it, man. I really like it." So I end up not being able to find some. This is like the summer of 2020. I'm not being able to find any that whole summer. Like I keep buying them from places. And a couple things. One is golf ball markers I found are really expensive, and not just like the CNC made where it's like a guy like in his garage thing. But also like even just like the enamel ones that I make. They're really expensive, like 40, $50. And the other thing was they're way too big for me. Like I just don't. If it's a poker chip size, like apologies if you're listening and you like those, but like get that out of my face. That is not for me. And also the thickness portion of it too. That's too big for me. I just think it's sort of a little ostentatious, and I also feel like on a green, it's a little distracting or rude or showy. It should be more like, hey, I have this cool thing in my pocket, and after like a couple rounds, your friends go, hey, that's really cool. Where did you get that? It's like, oh yeah, okay, cool. I don't necessarily want to be like braggadocious about like this cool thing I have. So so I kept getting them, and also like the quality wasn't great. It's like the paintwork wasn't great. The backs of them were not like very high, not a lot of high finishes on there. And they're really expensive. And then the third thing was they were coming in these just like brown mailers and like in these little plastic bags, people just throwing them in there, whatever. Like they didn't really care about you as a customer. So all those things kind of like bugged me. So I decided, how hard could it be? That's where the how hard could it be thing came from. So I researched it and did a lot of work. I worked on Matchstick for about 8 or 9 months before it actually launched. Wrote a business plan, did a bunch of market research, made a whole list of designs, started designing. I'm an art kid at heart. My mom is an art teacher. I was a big art kid before my high school had a video program, so I kind of switched into that. But like something creative has always been. Obviously, I was a writer for a long time, so something creative has always sort of been a part of my big part of my personality. So I ended up drawing a bunch of stuff, and sort of the cool little loop to that story is, we launched in, I forget if it's June or July, but June or July of 2021, and I'm thinking, hey, Jones are the big boys in town. They're the big Portland golf people. Like in a year, I'm gonna send them an email like, hey guys, like, okay, maybe we can do something together. And about 2 weeks in, I get an email to my inbox. I don't look at it right away. I look at it the next day, and it's actually Chris Carnahan, who's one of the two owners of Jones, and he says, hey, I saw your thing launched, saw it on Instagram. It's really cool. Why don't you come down and have a conversation? You're in town, I'm in town. Come hang out. And so the end of that story is that Matt, like Jones, has kind of become Matchstick's like big brother company a little bit. They're always super helpful. We have talks, we chop it up. They're really great dudes. Like everybody who works there is a really great dude. And so now I actually make that shuttlecock marker for Jones, in
Wow.
addition to some other ones. So it's and they carry some of our regular retail marks. So yeah, it was just kind of a thing where it's just like, well, how hard could it be? And here we are 3 years later, where it's like, all I wanted was one good ball marker in the summer of 2020. And if you're seeing this on YouTube, behind me is our inventory rack with thousands and thousands of golf ball markers. Where it's now there's like, I wash my clothes, and I
Yeah.
hear rattling in the washer. I know exactly what it is. I got ball markers everywhere. So
I've seen some of like I've seen a on your Instagram, and go follow Dane and Matchstick Golf on Instagram. Um, some of the pictures of some of the massive amounts of ball markers that you have and the different designs. So designing a golf ball marker um, for the weekend warrior golfer. Um, what do you look at when it comes to symmetry or something that a weekend warrior or everyday hacker is gonna really draw their eyes to? What are you
yeah.
looking at there?
I think the first thing I think about is the concept. I like the sort of the mental wordplay that happens when you look at that shuttlecock ball marker from Jones. Like that type of thing attracted me. Oh, shuttlecock. Oh, right, birdie golf thing. Okay, cool. Yeah, you kind of put that thing connection. So I try to look for things like that. So a lot of stuff like that is like based off of it. Like one of our most popular markers, probably like our second most popular marker ever, and now it's like a continuing line, is the Putterade. So it's a Gatorade bottle. The first one was the last glass bottle that Gatorade ever made. I think of that as like the Michael Jordan one. And it was orange and it was in that exact shape, but it's a Putterade. And the other thing too about a golf ball marker is not only can it aid you in, or like, is it a clever thing, like it Gatorade, Putterade kind of flows together, but also, you can line up your ball off a golf ball marker. That helps you. And the other thing too is like, I find, and people think this is like a sales pitch when I talk to them, but I'm just so passionate about this very niche thing that I got into, is that you having a bad round, it's too hot, you just double bogeyed something, and you're like, oh man, do I even want to be out here? Then you pull that thing out of your pocket on the green, you go, huh, huh, cool, funny. You have like
Yeah.
a little moment, and like
Yep.
maybe that little thing gives you 5% over the course of a year. And we were just talking off camera how you played 300 rounds in 3 years. It's like, or 2 years, whatever it was, and it's like, hey, maybe that literally helps you putt better. Like if you're in a little better mood, putting is, so much of golf is technical, but we all know so much of golf is mental. And if something makes you happy when you got it in your hand, how is that not going to help you?
Yeah.
So things like that are really where I start. And the other thing I was kind of going against, because there's some other folks out here that make these types of things and I wasn't just going against like, hey, like they don't have any packaging, so like what are we packaging ours is, and ours come in real match boxes. And when they're full color, they're also embossed. When you open them, so it's kind of a funny story. The real match boxes, so like they came, like if you ordered the first 2 weeks, they came with real matches in them with a real striker. You could like light a stogie on it. So like I have friends who still have some of the original ones, and you can like rattle the box. But now like the tray has them printed in there. The matches are like, it's a printed photo of matches I took in a light box, and then the striker is actually just a block of color that's matched, because both of those things are hazmat. And the second month Matchstick existed, we made like 5 figures, and I had a regular job this time. I'm just like, what is happening? Like, I don't understand what's going on. Like, I have a real job. Like, I started like, oh, screw it, I'll just put all this on my credit card. I'm gonna start a company, man. And all of a sudden it hits. I'm just like, what's going on? But that also meant we were like shipping to Japan and Canada and Ireland, and they're not going through customs because they're hazmat. So I had to figure out a different solution. But it's like, again, when you get it, it comes in this matchbox, and then it's wrapped in cellophane, and then there's a sticker of what's on the back, and it's like this cool little unboxing presentation. Then you get it like in a branded mailer, and there's like a couple stickers and a couple teas and like a little welcome thing from us. It's like a little experience, giving you a little bit more for your money, because I feel like that's what sets you apart, as opposed to, and that's kind of leads into what I was going to say about the design factor portion of it, is I found a lot of the quote unquote competition at the time I was doing research, they kind of made I've had conversations with other folks about this, like other companies my size, like leaders of those companies, where making something that you think is going to hit that you're not necessarily super psyched on, but you think will be like, oh, well, people will like this, like it'll sell, is like what a crappy way to to run a company. So like some companies I saw had like they had pro Joe Biden markers and pro Trump markers. And which means they're just taking whoever they can get money from. It's like, that is so, excuse me, but fucking lame. Like, that
Yeah,
is just like,
yeah, yeah,
grow a pair, either pick a side, or like make something cool that's not so clearly blatantly a cash grab. Make
yeah,
something that you
yeah.
like. And there's lots of markers that Matchstick makes. It's like, I like this. And if people don't like it, internally I'm like, well, you're wrong, but
For sure.
but externally it's like, that's fine because I think it's dope and I'm gonna have a good time using it. So like, we'll break even eventually, like whatever. And like usually when you have that kind of passion for stuff and you continually do that through your designs, because we release quite a few markers every year, and we usually have about 30 markers in stock of any given design, or we have 30 different designs of any in stock at any time. That's going to play out over time, and people are going to show that you're passionate about your design. So you end up with like stuff that's cool.
For sure. How's that? How do you get from, or what's the process from getting your orders and shipping these things like literally all over the world? Like, is that something that you foresaw when you got into this? Is like, oh yeah, this will totally be a whole global thing that we'll get into, and I'll be shipping stuff to Europe, Asia. Yeah, no,
Not
this
at
is good.
all.
Or where does that, when you get that first order? It's like, how do I even get this there?
Yeah,
Right?
not at all. No, like the original, like the first rung of Matchstick stuff that went out, like our mailer was like a plain white one I had bought in case we had like started to sell some, and then I was putting stickers on the outside of them to make them quote unquote branded. But like the first one I ever sold was actually the first marker ever sold was the alligator with a one-eyed alligator with a golf ball in its mouth, one-eyed gator, which we don't carry anymore. But and it went to a friend who I had played with and showed him like a prototype, and he was like, I need that. I'm like, well, it doesn't launch for like another month and a half. He's like, yeah, but I need it, so like give it to me. And then then all of a sudden it's like quickly, especially like the connection through Jones is like, we got hooked up with, we actually have a distributor for Japan and South Korea. Really great guys, Knee Deep, Canary, you should check them out. Yoon is like an all-time homie. I really want to go to Japan to like check out his shop. It looks so cool. But he's like a customer of Jones. He carries a lot of Jones stuff in his actual shop in Tokyo. And so all of a sudden it was like we were shipping like 100 markers at a time of retail ones to Japan. And it's like, what's going on? So we have to get branded boxes and branded mailers and all that kind of stuff. And it's running a business like this, at this scale is like, it's a process over time. Now I'm like really proud of what we have. Like we've even recently, we just launched like collection number 1 for 2024. And we're sort of focusing on, in addition to our regular like metalwork, our towels, our ferrules, is a lot of like made in Oregon, made in the USA stuff. So my girlfriend is a master crocheter. She makes, and so we've concepted over about 5 or 6 months head covers that she's crocheting. And again, crochet you have to make by hand. You can't knit ones you can do on a machine. Crochet you have to make by hand. And it's the shape of a big match, and it's got a bicolored orange palm on the top for the flame. Do that, and then also I'm making golf ball marker displays, and then also as an artist I'm making like wood wall art of some of our designs. But I also had to figure out like, okay, how are we packaging those? People are buying these, the art is like between $149 and $189, like, because it's art and it took me a long time. I'm like airbrushing it and laser cutting it, and I'm designing the design and all that kind of stuff. But it's also like stained on the back. There's also thoughtful things like it has a wall cleat to hang it and a foot at the bottom, so it hangs evenly on your wall. There's serial numbers on it, there's signatures on it, and it comes in a box with like Matchstick red, it's called crinkle paper, but like that crinkle cut stuff that pads it. It's all wrapped in bubble wrap, and then it's wrapped in crinkle paper, and then like there's stickers laid out, and there's all this other stuff, and then there's Matchstick like tape on it, so it's all branded and stuff. So it's like this whole like, if you're going to spend $149 on a piece of art, it better not just come in some plain thing. It's like, hey, let's give you an experience. But you got to figure that out as time goes along. And that's the fun part, is that Matchstick still has like what I would call a relatively small following. in terms of like, scale, like comparing somebody like Jones or like Malbon or somebody that's like really big like that, that's made it like in our quote unquote space. But people are really into what we do, and they end up being diehard fans. Like I see most of our stuff is like repeat orders from people that are already on our email list or have already bought something from us
Well, I think
because they
that
know they're going to
that
get something.
personality, that personal connection
Yeah.
through you and Matchstick probably draws a little bit more of that repeat buyer
Right.
type of
Yeah,
feel,
and
right?
it's come from me. It's like that my hands touched every single thing. Like I probably wrapped the marker. Like it's like somebody here wrapped the marker. Like the way they go in the box. That like I probably now it's like we're making our stickers here because I have this like the space behind me. If you're watching this on YouTube, is like a big workshop space. To my right is like an inkjet printer, a super high quality inkjet printer, a Cricut machine, a laser cutter, an airbrush station. Behind me over here is the club building station because I'm a freak show about that kind of stuff, and I'm always rebuilding clubs. But that I probably like had my hands in it, and I definitely mailed your marker. Like I'm still the one mailing your stuff, and but because I'm here and I'm able to do it full time now, it's like I get to do things like I mail stuff every single day. It's not like every 3 or 4 days. So it's like also, when you order from a small company you kind of found on Instagram, it's like, I wonder if it's going to come in 3 weeks. It's like, no, it's probably coming in like 4 days because that's what I would want as a customer. So just trying to make it what I would want to do, or make it who I would want to buy from. I think again, it's like a good long-term plan. And also like, it makes me feel good because people are super happy when they get them.
For sure. So you were talking about your wall mountings and the golf head covers. Any other accessories that now Matchstick is going to be branching into that you're maybe not already into or coming up, or
Yeah. Oh,
something
you want
along
a little,
those?
a little sneak preview? Sure. Yeah.
Ah, yeah, yeah, yeah.
I love
I've
it.
been
Yes.
doing this podcast thing for a little while now, and sometimes the light bulb goes on, and I know how to get a little bit more out of my guests than maybe they're willing or want to give.
No, of course. So about half of our work is custom work for either courses or other random clients. So it's like University of Oregon, Pepsi, University of Oregon State University, 1,000 country clubs. It's like, it's too many to name. But we've done a lot of towels for folks as customs. But the big thing we've done that we haven't released personally is divot tools and bag tags. And so, and that's probably most because those are like relatively expensive to make. And so it's kind of hard to like stock multiple things of that. But we will release a divot tool this year that has like a design on it in enamel where it probably won't have a ball marker that comes off of it. Just because that's a little bit more. But then we will have literally, it's so funny you asked this because so this is what my life is like. I lay in bed at night, I close my eyes, it's super dark, and I just think about the business. And so I think about cool ideas. And then last night, we got home, we were doing my girlfriend and I went up to Seattle for a pop-up show with Bogey Boys and then Rivian, the electric car company. And then it was hosted by the Pro Shop and it benefited First Tee of Washington. So we're up there, and then we come home, we're all tired, we go to bed, and then 20 minutes in, I reach over and grab my phone, I open the notes app, she's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "I had an idea for the business." And it's so it's a different type of divot tool that I'm really excited about, that I think will be super personalizable, or be able to a lot of personalization factor there. So that divot tools and bag tags will be the next thing that you'll see, that from a metalwork standpoint, it's a new line we haven't released.
Cool, cool. So you said you're kind of a gear geek and you like working on clubs. So we can get into a little bit of the gear geek stuff. Let's start with what's your background in golf? Did you play early? Did you come into it late like me? I'm only 3 years into this sport.
Okay.
Never really played it before, and here we are. I'm 3 years into the sport. We have a brand of our own. We have a podcast, and we just kind of I've played more rounds in the last 3 years than most people have played in their life. But again, that's where I am in my life as well as a getting close to being an empty nester. Kids are all up, wife has a career, and I have a career. But what gets you out of bed is for me now is going and playing golf. Golf is a big part of what I do. But we are up here in Canada, it's winter, so
Right.
simulators are big, and
Yeah.
but I was dealing with an injury for most of the winter, so I'm just getting into the sim now. I've been to the sim probably 3 times, and it's starting to feel good. And it's double digits here Celsius, so it's like 13, 14 degrees Celsius here now. So spring is hit, and it
Sure.
won't be that long before we're on the driving range outside.
Yeah.
But what's your background in golf that maybe down when you were going through your other careers is like, okay, I want to do something in that golf sphere. I'm just not sure what. So, like, give us a little bit of a background on where golf came into your life.
Yeah, so it's kind of a funny story. Like, I'm a non-traditional golfer in several different ways. The first is that I started playing super young, and I played golf pretty consistently until I was probably 22. But I also never played youth golf, never played organized golf, didn't play on a high school golf team, didn't play, like, never got a lesson. So I was good enough to like score, like probably be like a 15 handicap without any of that, or like a 12, more like probably a 13, something like that. But like my stroke was like straight in, straight out. And this is before like, you know, there was like a lot of like, you know, Mark Crossfield or Rick Shields, somebody like that, like giving you like swing tips that may or may not like break your swing on YouTube. So, or before I knew to like look that up. So like my stroke was sort of like straight in, straight back. Very good putter, excellent iron player. Couldn't hit a driver to save my life because I didn't even know for a long time to like put it on my front foot, which is a little embarrassing. Um,
We learned that
so
real quick.
yeah, so you know, but it's like that's what happens when you're like a very non-traditional golfer. Like I would go to the like par threes. I'm from Salem, which is about 45 minutes south of Portland. And my dad would just like give me a 9 iron. We'd go to a par three course and he'd go straight through, straight back. And I just learned how to like, you know, again, like your brain still has that proprioception where you know where the club face is in your hand, even if you're not like doing anything correctly. You do it enough and you're gonna like hit them straight on your swing. And so I didn't play. So I played golf. I ended up, I went to the University of Oregon, which is in Eugene. And so the funny thing about Eugene is like, I ended up getting a job there I worked as the new media manager. So I ran a bunch of I was the website editor essentially for, and social media manager for several local TV stations. And so, but being 22 in Eugene, when you graduate in a college town like that, then nobody is your age and there's nobody around. So nothing to do except for like, I would just go and play golf every day after work. Like, in fact, I even swapped my schedule so I would get off earlier. Like I went in at like 6 a.m. and then left at 3, so I could go play golf and like make sure there was still sun. And so, and I didn't play golf for a couple of years when I moved back to Portland and then moved to Charlotte and Seattle and stuff and like moved around and was doing that. But it was funny. So, an ex-girlfriend had a 30th birthday party where it was like, you know, 4 or 5 couples. We went out to Central Washington. And so there's a place called Suncadia there, and there's several like very nice courses. We were on Rope Rider. And so the guys all went to go play golf, girls went to the lake for one of the days. So I'm just like riding, I'm just, you know, having some beers, whatever. We get to like the third hole, and I'm seeing these guys, you know, hitting balls. And I'm just like, let me see your 7 iron real quick. Let's take a swing. Let me just take a swing. And then, you know, I hit a nice one, and it's funny because like that little thing went off in my brain, you know, and it's the same thing. So one of my foursome, which are called the Wedgie Bros, got to have a name. One of them is a comedian named Shane Brendan, and he's like Portland's funniest person, like, you know, whatever. He's like the top guy here in town. Anyway, so he has a bunch of comedian friends, and in Portland, you know, golf is not the coolest thing for people of our age. So people are like, you like golf now? What's that about? It's like, first of all, Shane was drafted by the Florida Marlins. Like, he was a AAA baseball player, so he's already an athlete, and he has that, you know, racket sport swing. So like, he's going to be relatively good at golf. The other thing is, you know, he told them, and I was like, man, this is what I tell everybody now, is that he hit one perfectly in the center, and it jumped off the face and had that nice, like, you know, ball flight going away, and a little hit of dopamine to your prefrontal cortex. And all you want is like, give me another ball. I want to do that again. I want that over and over and over and over and over again, which is like exactly what happened to me at Rope Rider at this course. And so in 2016, when I hadn't played for about 4 years, it was just like I was completely snake bitten. And I worked I was like working the desk for NBC Sports at the time, and I worked at night, which meant I could go golf in the day all the time. So like, especially like pre-COVID, 10:30 a.m. On a Wednesday, nobody's there. So I was at the golf course for like 4 hours a day, like play. Oh, like I'll like, do whatever I want, like on the range, and like hit chips, and then I'll play nine, and then I'll go home. And I just did that like 4 times a week. I did whatever I wanted, and I've just been like completely locked into golf since then. So I mean, now that's 7 years ago, so, or 8 years ago. So yeah, fast forward, now I've owned a golf company for 3 years. It's like, how did that happen? Like, I'm totally hooked on the drug of golf.
For sure. Yeah. Guilty as charged, hooked
Yeah,
on
it's
golf,
what happens, man.
right? You get into it. It's like, you know, like everybody knows that listens to our pod knows where we came from when it came to pre-COVID, you know, kind of depression and like, what are we going to do for the rest of our days? Like,
Yeah.
your family walks out the door, they got their lives going, and you're home, and wife's got a career, and it's like, well, what am I going to do? What is there now? What can you put your energy into that's really going to give you some joy? That daily routine. And yeah, golf was it. And when we jumped in and we started our first season, we have our own tour for our guys. We travel around a little bit and do FedEx Cup style points, and we play for fake trophies and a jacket. And as adults, we're doing that. Yeah, but that the that's one thing. But the process of every day, like just going to the golf course with your buddies, that the 9 holes or 18 holes and hanging out with, I mean, yeah, we're going to be doing this, like whether we do the social media stuff or not. We're going to be playing golf until we can't.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
Literally, that's going to be our thing until we just physically can't anymore. And that's not such a bad thing, right?
Nope.
No way.
Yeah, it's great.
So so you talk about working on clubs. So give us a little bit of, so do you work on your own clubs or do you work on other people's clubs? And when you say working on clubs, do you get into that fitting part of it, or you know maybe working with guys to customize their clubs maybe a little more to their, because that's a whole business in itself. And we just had Adam from Grip Garage on, and he deals with grips, but he doesn't do that fitting. He just deals with grips, period. So
Yeah.
give us a little bit of on that.
Yeah, so I definitely don't do any fitting. That's a whole other skill set, and it requires like a lot. Like I have a fitter named Chris, who's actually down at a club champion south of me in Tualatin. And for anybody listening, if you haven't already heard, it sounds like from other episodes of this podcast, go get fit. Like, oh, is it time for me to get fit? The answer is yes. Like the only time I recommend people don't get fit is when they are maybe like in their first year and they're not good at all, and they still don't know the basics of a swing. Like they don't know what it should feel like. But like you can get fit kind of at any level. You can get fit as a 25 handicap, you can get fit as a 15, definitely get fit as a 0. Because I got my first set of fit clubs probably 2 years ago or 3 years ago or something. And the ones I had sort of checked by my coach at the time, where it's like, these are not like wildly out, wrong for you, but obviously something nicer will do. Mostly what I work on here is, so like a big part of it is Matchstick started making ferrules last year, I think, which are, if folk, a lot of people don't know what they are actually. Even like a guy in my group who I actually met through sports writing, we were on TV together here in Portland. He's been golfing longer than he's been golfing since he's almost 40. He's been golfing since he was like 7, so he's been golfing for a long time. But he didn't even know what they were. He was like, what are they called? Furls? Like, what are they called? And then you show him, he's like, oh yeah, those do come on clubs. So they're the little plastic cones that are right where the head matches the shaft, where the shaft gets glued in. And they do have a functional purpose, as they also strengthen that joint. But like everything else in golf, you're trying to, why not customize them? Why not pull out your 7-iron and some shot you're like, oh man, I gotta go over water. Can I carry this? And you see that like the cool colored ferrule and it matches your paint and it matches your grips, and you're like, hell yeah, I'm gonna do it, bro. I'm gonna rip it. You know what I mean? Like, why not? So and so again, like that's kind of another space where it's like there's kind of like one main big ferrule company, and they're actually south of us, good dude, who is in Roseburg, I think, but he makes a different style than mine. Mine are more sort of like bright colors, and a little more like solid blocks, and he does a lot of like super small stripes and stuff like that, and a little more sort of old school styling. So again, if you wanted something a little bit different, that's what we started making. But yeah, so it's like, again, like the art portion of it is like all the paint fill on the clubs and matching the grips and stuff.
One
So
thing
what
that,
I do,
oh, sorry.
oh, go ahead. Yeah.
So one of the things I've noticed in the last few years of just doing this. You know, back in the day, clubs were just generic,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. You went to Dick's Sporting Goods or wherever you get them, and
Right.
you get them off the rack.
But now you can customize your grips, your grip look. You can customize your shaft. You can customize the ferrule. You can. I mean, guys are getting their wedges blinged, right?
You should see mine.
Right. I mean, so it's not just what you wear to the golf course or what your bag looks like now. Everything in the genre of golf is customizable, and you can accessorize everything. So there's definitely a market for all of that stuff right down the line, right?
Yeah. And I still think it's, again, like, I mean it genuinely, is I think there's a confidence game happening in golf. And we've all I think we've all experienced that thing, especially if you're like you or me. Like, I play like probably 40 to 50 rounds a year. For some reason, like mid-September, when it's like the nicest here to play golf, it's not super hot anymore. It's like I will just lose it for no reason. It's just like all of a sudden I'm shooting like 11 over what I normally have shot. Like, I literally, this last year, I shot my personal best twice in 3 rounds, and then shot like almost 20 strokes worse than that. Like 4 weeks later, it's like, what the fuck is happening?
Yep.
And
Again,
so again, yeah, the
without
confidence game of having that there.
we talk about, like, I grew up in hockey, obviously being from good old Canada.
Sure.
So, and I started coaching after I was done playing, and even as a coach, like, you may not know how to coach. You learn that as you're going as well. But you're in hockey. You've grown up in hockey. You have markers you can go back to, right?
I do that all the time.
Right? In golf, where we've just been playing for 3 years, when we lose our swing or something is wrong and it's not, we have no markers to go back to. It's almost like you have to start right from square one. And okay, clubs goes back. You need, you need a position here, and then it's almost like you got to go back to square one because you have no background in this game, right? And we get that when you lose it. It's like, why am I even here? It's just like, I went to Walmart, I picked up a set of golf clubs, and I came to the golf course, and this is my first time doing this. We experience it at least once or twice every year.
Sure. Like, yeah. And which is also why I recommend have a golf coach. Even if you don't need to go all the time or you don't have the money for it, find a guy that you can, like, in those dog days of summer, can like send a couple of videos to, one from the back, one from the front, be like, what's going on here? And one little thing they can tell you, like, because they don't want to mess you up anymore. But like a good one will say, like, hey, you're doing this big thing, that'll straighten you out. It may not fix every single, your low point or whatever it is, but like, hey, like for me, it's like a big thing is like, I tend to come forward with the ball and not stay behind the ball line, or like my hip line, I should say. And then the other thing I'll do is like my grip especially my right hand will strengthen over time. So it'll just like slide under the club. So like, and you're looking at it and you're like, I'm pretty sure I'm doing this right. Even after time, you get to like watch your own stuff and you know what's going on, but it's like having a third party is super helpful. But yeah, in terms of like what the club building stuff I do is like, what I have is a lot of friends who buy my ferrules here and they're like, can you put them on for me? And the answer is absolutely. Like, come on over, come to the workshop. We have like a Matchstick is based in this like commercial work live space. So it's this huge loft area with like 30-foot tall ceilings. It's got this workshop upstairs. It's got all the products and stuff downstairs. You can like play PGA 2K on this giant TV. You can like putt. You can hook up. I have a Capto, which is it's like a TrackMan for a putter, essentially. You put it on your shaft. We've done some markers with them. So, and I really love that product. But you can like, figure out what's going on with your putt, where your face angle is, that kind of thing. And then also like I can rebuild your clubs and put your ferrules on. And then I can also, the big thing that I've gotten into lately is like, cause I also have all the lead tape and all the swing weights you could possibly ask for. But like, I will also ask you like I dynamically swing weight all of my clubs now. I don't know if you do that or not, but like, I totally recommend that. Like, a friend who, his dad's a PGA pro, and he's a good buddy who lives actually right here next to me. And I live in a neighborhood called St. John's in North Portland. Recommended it to me about a year and a half ago, and now I'm just never going to go back. But essentially what the concept is the idea is you want to have, it's a little DeChambeau-ish in that it's trying to get every swing weight in feel from a mathematical basis to feel the same as your favorite club. So you basically start, if there's a club where you're like, hey, my 8-iron is my favorite club, it's probably because it matches you the best. It probably is, because it's like when you get fit, most of the time it's based off of a stock swing weight. So it's like, hey, like your driver is going to be like D1 or something, and then like your 8-iron is going to be like D4.5 or something. So, but if you like D4.5, like D1, because of the mathematics of like shaft length and club head weight, and also like what your like what literally what shafts you have, their kick points, all that kind of stuff. D1 and in your driver is probably going to feel different than D5 4.5 on your 8-iron. So you can essentially type into, there's some folks look up dynamic swing weighting. You can find an Excel sheet where you can essentially, this is real nerd talk, but you can type in but also I was an accountant, so but you can type in, hey, like it basically says like, I like the reference point is my 8-iron is this long, it's 36 inches or something, it's 4.5, I like that one, make everything feel like that. And then you type in, okay, the 7-iron is, like, I measured the shaft, it's this long, and I want it to feel like that, and it'll spit you out, okay, so like for this shaft length, the 7-iron should feel like you should weight it on the swing weight scale to like D4 or D3.8 or whatever it is. And so now all of my clubs are that. So usually when people come, because when you take apart a club, you take a blowtorch to it to melt off the epoxy and melt off the old ferrule. But that'll also usually kick out it'll melt all the epoxy that holds your swing weight in. So you're gonna have to re-swing weight no matter what. It's like we can put it back to what I had before, or I could do a stock swing weight, like, okay, just step it. Or we could actually do some math and have some fun, and then your 4-iron will feel like your 8-iron, and you feel like way more confident with it. And so like now it's like, yeah, I can rip my 4-iron. It's like, cool. So yeah, that's mostly what I do with the club building thing. Like I had a friend get one for like his girlfriend's best friend for Christmas, and like we needed to cut down a shaft, and like hey, like how tall is she, and like you play with her, what do you think her swing, like she's regular swing speed for like a very amateur woman of this height. It's like, okay, great, so like let's swing weight it to this, and she'll probably like it. Let's pull it. How big are her hands? Are her hands like bigger than normal, like whatever, like how many layers of tape should we put into the grip, that kind of thing. But I have all the tape and all the grip and all the lead tape and all that kind of stuff. So I got a vise and a swing weight scale. Like, yeah, it's pretty fun stuff.
It sounds cool, pal. That just, again, so much dynamics of this game that I am so unfamiliar with. Again, just being relatively new, because Chris went and got fitted for his clubs last year, at the beginning of last year, and I still haven't been fitted for clubs yet. And again, I'm using a set of clubs basically bought sight unseen. I purchased them from Golf Town. I'm a Wilson guy.
Oh yeah, Wilson
Right?
makes nice clubs, man.
Yeah, man. So I got the D7s. I've had them for a couple of years now, and but I've never been fit, because this is something that in our sphere, like, we have a guy here that Chris we go to. He does my grips and stuff. But I've seen how Chris's game has evolved over the last year. Like, his game has really gotten a lot better. And I mean, I'm still in the 14, 15 handicap. Chris is probably a little lower, probably closer to single digits than he is away from. So he's playing well, and I see that. But for somebody like myself, and this is something I've asked a few people around as well. It's like it's intimidating to go and see a fitter and say, okay, do your do the damage. Let me know what's going on here, right? And that's still in my head. That type of I don't know, man. That's maybe next year, but I've already seen how that works with Chris, and his ability to dial in his lower irons, and I see it. So now it's in my head that yeah, this is something that you have to do next step, right?
The thing that I also think is kind of a bummer about the golf industry, and there's like this rep to it, and you kind of have to test it out, is that there's also the thing of like some fitters are there to just upsell you. So finding the right one can be a little difficult sometimes when they really care about, again, kind of, you have to find somebody who's kind of like the same attitude I have with
Well, it's that
Matchstick.
personal
Like,
connection, right?
but also it's like, I want you to do good, and I think that if you're happy with this, you will come back to me, and it's a long-term business plan. It's not a quick cash grab.
Right.
So like I have a fitter, like I'm like kind of like I'm personal friends with, which is very helpful. And he's able to do stuff for me um like even just give me advice for other friends, like, or now I just learn enough from him that I know how to like generally tell people, like, because the biggest thing about fitting is it's not usually the head. The head is, unless your head is like wildly wrong for you, where it's like you have some crazy game improvement like offset club, and like if you're pulling everything left, it's like, hey, you're too good for this. Like your swing is too on plane, essentially. It's not over the top enough to need to have an offset that big, or vice versa. It's like you have a blade and like you're like, I couldn't play like a true blade. I have a set of true blades, but I can't play them. It's like, yeah, like that's, you need a little bit more of an offset. You need a little bit more forgiveness. The head usually doesn't matter. Like when I got fit for the first time, like three years ago, it's like it was between the T200s and the P790s, and I picked the P790s because they weren't ugly. That was it. But the real thing was the shaft. KBS C taper light. My problem is getting the ball airborne usually, especially as the longer irons get long, and that shaft does that for me. Where it's like I still swing it hard, so like I have like the 115s or 110s, whatever they come in, but I still don't get them airborne because of the dynamics of my swing. So that shaft, the way the flex works and the kick point, will help me get it airborne. So flip side is like one of my closest friends, like the guy I play in all like our tournaments and stuff, is like gets it too airborne, and he's also taller than me and like swings super fucking hard. So like, but he has a set of Mizuno 919 hot metals, and he has the same shaft in it, so everything's a balloon ball. So it's like, actually our fitter is going to get him into some new clubs, but the main thing will be get him out of those shafts. They don't fit for him because they're giving him too many balloon balls. He needs a lower flighted based on the current dynamics of his swing. But you can do stuff like that. Like actually, so we're talking about stuff we do. Like what we do is like I rebuilt his clubs for his birthday last year, and like did some like laser engraving on his wedges. But he's be like a motocross, semi-pro motocross rider, so I put like his motorcycle number on it, that kind of stuff. But also like Nile is 6'2", and he's swinging regular shafts, like regular length shafts, I should say. So I put plus half inches in him, and all of a sudden, like all his his back tilt and all this other stuff, it was just like he kicked ass, because he was just like, these are like weirdly so much easier. Like they're still balloon balls, but they're so much easier to like. I have less weird contact at the bottom where I miss my low point, and that's because he's standing at the right angle, just because of that. So it's like I do that stuff for folks who recommend that kind of things or can, but it's like that's over time. But it's like getting this stuff dialed in is like, it's not as hard as you may think, and it's really ends up being about like, I will be, unless I somehow like lose 80 pounds and like am like totally different and like gain an inch of height for some reason at age 35, like I'll be in those shafts forever. Like I've bought those shafts on eBay in other heads, taken the heads off, sold the heads, so now I have extra sets of those shafts. Right. So like I have a set of the original Nike blades that I refinished with Hunter Palmer PGS, who I would recommend if anybody wants to get stuff made. And we swapped golf ball markers for those heads, and so those heads I'm going to put our traffic cone ferrules on, which are all orange, but they're the same orange as a Nike box, like a shoe box, and then they're Nikes. So I'm gonna paint film with that, and then Iobic, which is my favorite grip company, makes that same color orange. But it's okay, those blades are gonna be pretty hard for me to hit, but I have an extra set of those shafts, so at least they'll be a little bit easier.
Yeah. Man, I could talk this stuff all
I know.
day.
It's like super fun, man.
It is. There's just so much, and you could just go forever, dude. I mean, so I think we'll wrap it up here now. But I think we might have to have a conversation again down the road, maybe later on in the year when we get back into golf and we start getting, because we're playing on an amateur tour this year as well. We're hoping to get a couple, 2 or 3 dates in on and get our feet wet in amateur golf, tournament style golf. So again, from 3 years ago to here we are going to play in a real amateur tournament, right?
Sure, yeah.
As, just these experiences now in golf, and there's just so much to talk about, so many people to get in contact with, to get like the information you were just giving us. Well, I could sit and listen to that all day.
Yeah,
because I'm into the game, and that's part of the game, and you just want to absorb all of that, right?
Yeah. So, it's fun. It's you know what? So like I'll say one last thing about that, which is that, so we were in Seattle for this pop-up, And that's the fun part. So like on Saturday when we were coming back, we stayed in like in a town north of Seattle, and then that meant when we were coming back, we are going right by sort of where, well, the last place I used to live in Seattle. So we were going back right back by my old home course. And so, and I already had set up, I was going to go talk to some other country clubs and stuff and drop off some product and talk to them. But it's like all I got to do that day on yesterday was like go talk to people about golf who were like into cool. How's it going here? What, you know, holy, it's hailing outside. Well, how many guys are canceling, not no showing? Let's talk about this. Let's talk about that. And then we get to talk to you about the markers. And oh, you know, how's your game lately? And then this guy was, you know, assistant pro at my home course, and he's like, oh yeah, I'm going to the PGA school. I'm going to be, you know, a full pro here soon. Yada yada. It's just like golf is fun, and getting to talk about it, like sort of, kind of about whatever, is like it's a blast. So like it's not just like the swinging, you know, swinging a club, like playing a course thing. It's also just like it's the community we get to like make, which is
For
fun.
sure.
Like I mean, we met each other through that way, so it's great.
Yeah, and again, this whole network of you know, the global golf community, it's you know, you'll never meet enough people to kind of sour you on talking golf. You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally.
You just will not meet enough people, because you could talk this all day, right? But anyways, Dane, I really appreciate you coming on, pal. This was a great chat. We will have to do this again. And
Yeah,
anybody out there on YouTube, listen to us on our Spotify, Apple, go check out Dane and Matchstick Golf, and tell them we sent you. Thanks,
yeah, I
everyone.
appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
You bet, pal.